Hello everyone, 76 Patriot here, and with a new month comes a new presidential prediction. So without further ado, let's jump right into filling out this electoral map here. Let's get the safe Democrat states out of the way to start off. Of course, we have the entire left coast here, and there are a number of states here, even Hawaii, possibly Colorado. I don't know, I'm skeptical about that one. But there are a number of states here, maybe even in New England, that I could see Trump doing quite a bit better than last time. I just don't think it would be anything to merit a different characterization for these states. But we'll have to see. And of course, we got Maine's first there. New York and New Jersey, these are two states. I'll feel Jersey is safe. But New York is a state that we've seen multiple polls for quite a while come out that show Biden leading by a likely margin by about 7 to 8 points. I just don't know if that's going to hold. I think he'll win by a bit more, if he's the nominee even. But honestly, if he keeps collapsing, we'll have to see. Trump could narrow it up. But as of right now, I'll leave it as safe. So that's basically all the electoral votes, at least in my opinion, that Democrats, I would say, are all but guaranteed out of the gate, no matter who the nominee is, unless there's some kind of a crazy, unforeseeable shakeup in one of these states. So now to fill out these safe Republican states, we have a heck of a lot of states here. We have, of course, the most of the Mountain West and the Midwest, of course, the Deep South, the South. When you see how much land, how much red territory that there is across the country, it's kind of crazy actually. And I know people say, well, land doesn't vote, and in a sense, they're right. But it is just kind of cool to see how much red that the United States still has. And Iowa and Ohio and Maine second are all two states in a district, I guess, that Trump won by under safe margins in both of the last two elections. However, I think due to trends of white working class voters and other demographics, in addition to just doing better across the board, I think he's going to win them by safe margins this time. So that's basically it. Oh, almost forgot Nebraska's at large there. That's it, I believe, for the safe Republican states. There, I could see some kind of merited discussion as to whether or not Florida should be considered safe at this point. I mean, Republicans are doing absolutely phenomenally in Florida. They're killing it, whether it's with voter registration, whether it was with the midterm elections. So, I don't know. There's an argument that Trump could win Florida by 10 points, which would be kind of my definition of a safe margin. We'll just have to wait and see. I don't want to be too bullish, so we'll come back to that in a moment. But that's basically it for the safe Republican states, at least in my opinion. So right there we have Republicans 149, kind of guaranteed out of the gate, Democrats at 191. So there actually are no, we're going to move on to filling the likely states out, but there actually are no likely Democrat states out, I just realized, which is kind of funny, in my opinion. So we'll move on to filling the likely Republican states out, of which there are several. Of course, we got the great state of Texas, and Texas is a state where Democrats have long kind of hoped against hope that they would be able to flip and finally have a blue Texas for the first time since decades, since like the 70s. And the problem is with that, sure, Democrats are doing 2020 or 2018 and 2020 were a bit scary. Both, I believe Trump won by about 5 points. Ted Cruz in his Senate race won by just about two, which is crazy. And it was a little scary for Republicans because, overperformances by Democrats in metro areas. However, Trump is just killing it in South Texas with Hispanics, and so I think he'll take the state probably about 6 to 7, maybe even 8, maybe more points, who knows. Same thing with Florida. I'm just not, again, too bullish to put it as a 10-point victory, but I can see Trump easily doing 6, 7, 8 points in the state, no problem. That's basically it for the likely Republican states, which brings us to the lean Democrat states. And there are several of these. And just kind of start off with the lean Democrat states. I'm not trying to rush this prediction too much because I do want to kind of take my time and explain some of my reasonings here. But we'll start off in the Southwest with the state of New Mexico. And New Mexico is a state that in my very first video on this channel, my first presidential prediction, I actually had as going likely Democratic. I'm changing that just because Biden is doing awful with Hispanics, absolutely awful across the board, and it's hard to see why New Mexico would be any different. New Mexico, there was actually a poll, I believe, just last week that showed Biden up by 2, I believe it was 2 against Trump, which is absolutely insane for an incumbent because he won it by just about 10, I believe, in 2020. So that is a massive kind of collapse there. And, if we keep seeing that, that kind of collapse for Biden, and honestly, no matter who the Democrat nominee is at this point, I think it could be 3 to 4 point kind of victory for him. Same thing with New Hampshire. I also had New Hampshire as going likely before. Now that's lean, and honestly, I wouldn't actually be too shocked if I update this prediction in the next month and it's tilt Democrat, because that's just how awful Biden is doing there. We saw a poll recently that showed actually Trump up very narrowly by 2 in the state. And we'll also just have to see how RFK, that poll didn't show him taking too much of the vote. I think he'll take a bit more of the vote actually in the end in the state and hurt Biden even more. But we'll just have to see. This is a state that Biden won by 7 points. Honestly, I think it's going to narrow up significantly. And lastly, for the Democrat leaners, we have the state of Virginia. This is one that, honestly, if you'd told me I was kind of wavering between tilt and lean, I would have thought you were crazy, even a couple weeks ago. And because this is kind of between lean and likely, my last prediction, I was kind of trying to debate. But Biden is just doing so abysmally here. We've seen so many polls come out of the state where Trump, if he's not outright leading, it's like a dead heat, which is crazy for a Biden plus 10 state from 2020. And I think Trump will do better in Virginia Beach and in Nova, particularly with blacks and maybe even Asians. Who knows? There are a lot of them in Nova. But we'll just have to see. There are so many states tightening up. It's crazy, guys. But I believe that's almost it, actually. That's it for the Democrat-leaning states. But we do have one district left that we should fill out. And that is the infamous Nebraska's 2nd. It went to Obama in 2008, one of his terms, I believe. I'm not going to say which one because I actually don't remember. Went to Trump in 2016, narrowly to Biden in 2020. Omaha is in the district. There are a lot. It's a very urban and suburban district. There's a lot of neocon, kind of liberal Republicans there. We'll just have to see. Even this one, I think, may tighten up. There was a poll that showed Trump narrowly leading a while ago. I'm just going to leave it as lean Democrat for now, just because of Omaha's there, and that area is growing even more Democrat by the day, it seems like. But we'll just have to see. So that's it for what I've characterized as the Democrat-leaning states. Actually, no, I lied. Sorry, guys. We got Maine at large. Maine at large is lean, and I keep forgetting these districts are so hard to keep straight because the way Nebraska and Maine does it. So Maine's at large, I think, is going to lean. Trump didn't do that bad last time, and I think he'll probably win it or lose it by about 4 to 5 points. So Biden win, Biden plus 4, whatever. So now, for real, we're moving on to the lean Republican states. And there are several of these. Let's start off with the state of North Carolina, actually my home state. And this is a state where Trump did significantly worse in 2020 than he did in 2016. It went from about 3 points, over 3.5 points, down to a 1-point victory. I think, Trump is doing particularly well, and Republicans in this eastern kind of black belt part of the state. He is also doing well in some of the exurban areas around the state's metro areas. And I just think he's probably going to win it by between 3 and 4 points at the end of the day, possibly even more. We'll have to see. But overall, I can definitely feel the momentum in my home state, and it is definitely voting for Trump at the end of the day. I think there's some kind of shills that still think, oh yeah, Biden, that's a kind of a potential flip, not happening this year unless something absolutely crazy happens. Same thing with Georgia. This is a state that I actually had as tilt Republican in my previous prediction, and I think is going to honestly vote alongside North Carolina. Maybe a bit less, maybe by 2 to 3 points, but still, Biden is doing awful in the state. He hasn't led in a poll for literally like a year, if I'm not mistaken. Trump is up, way up in the polling by like 5 points or something in the aggregate. And Biden is partially doing so bad due to a collapse of black support, a collapse of the kind of independent, college educated suburban coalition that he won with in 2020. So these are two states that I think out of the gate are leaning Republican, and I would be absolutely shocked if either of them at this point went Democratic. Although I will be honest, Georgia I probably would see as slightly less Trump friendly than North Carolina, but I'll still leave them as lean. That's basically it for the lean Republican states. There's several that I think could make a close contest. Like I think Arizona, Nevada, even Wisconsin, I think could potentially compete for a lean characterization. However, I don't want to be too bullish at this moment. So let's do actually there are no lean Democrat states. I guess we're down to tilt characterization. So there is only several tilt Democrat states, but we'll actually start off with the state of Minnesota. And this might be a bit controversial, so guys, sound off in the comments section and feel free to critique me on this. But this is a state I had as leaning Democrat in my last prediction. I don't know. I mean, I think the Democrat Party is so divided right now, whether it's even with who's going to be the nominee and then the Israel-Palestine issue. I think that Arab voters are going to come out strong against Biden, whether it's maybe not coming out at all or supporting RFK. I don't know how many would do that, but I just don't see, a massive surge of support like Biden saw in 2020 compared to 2016 when Clinton actually very narrowly won the state against Trump. And we saw a very high uncommitted vote in this state. I don't know. It depends how well RFK is doing, because Minnesota is a state that is really only winnable for Republicans when there's a very strong third-party presence on the ballot. And there wasn't in 2020. Not really. So we'll have to see what happens. But I am comfortable, honestly, with the point at this point now to have it as tilt Democrat. So maybe a Democrat Biden +1 kind of win. I was not comfortable doing this, several months ago. If you'd asked me, I would have said it's maybe lean, kind of Biden +3 or 4. Not anymore. Not with how bad he's doing. And then, of course, we have. Actually, I believe that's it for the tilt Democrat states. So as far as tilt Republican states, there are quite a few. And let's actually just start off, trying to figure out where to start. Let's start off in the Southwest and change things up a little bit. So we'll start off with the state of Nevada. This is a state I could honestly see being characterized as lean. I just don't want to be too kind of overconfident, if that makes sense. But I just don't see any other way to slice it other than that Trump is certainly the favorite right now. Nevada's a state, the Reid machine is done. It's kind of over with. Republicans are doing really well all across the board. They won the governorship last time. It was very narrowly lost the Senate race there. They did very well. I believe they may have even won the popular vote, although they narrowly lost several of the House districts last time. So Nevada's a state. It's also one of the few that actually moved to the right, even as the nation trended left between 2016 and 2020. So I think that Trump is going to do much better in Clark County, which you need to if you're going to win the state. I think he's going to max out the rurals. And honestly, Arizona, I'm also, same thing, also going to put as tilt red. This is a state that Biden very narrowly won in 2020 by about 11,000 votes. The problem for him this time is Maricopa County, for example, you need to do really well. You need to win the county, and basically, in order to win, I mean, that's not entirely true because you could theoretically win without carrying it, but you certainly, if that's not the case, you certainly need to do well all around the rest of the state. So the battle really hinges on Maricopa County, and I think Trump can do it this time. I think he's going to do particularly well with Hispanics, and I think he's going to take it at the end of the day. It might be a point, Arizona has trended off a cliff compared to where it used to be, but I do think he's going to take it. So now moving on to the Rust Belt, we have Wisconsin, which let's get out of the way, characterized as tilt, because this is actually the most friendliest of the Rust Belt trio. I could see a lean characterization being kind of warranted here. Again, I don't want to be too kind of crazy and like put every state as lean Republican, so I'll just leave it as tilt. But this is a state that Trump really needs he doesn't need it to win if he gets the right combination elsewhere, but it would be very good for him to have just to kind of cement that possible victory. And Wisconsin is a state where Republicans historically have done fairly well. Ron Johnson won the Senate race in 2022. And basically, one of the ways in which you win is you try to keep turnout in Dane County and some of these large, Madison, some of these large areas to a minimum. You better, just kind of hope and pray that Democrat turnout is not through the roof like it was in 2020, and absolutely max the rurals out to blood red as best you can, and you win. That's the recipe. And I think Trump's going to do that this time with white working class voters, with disaffected, maybe moderates, and we'll just have to see. But I think he'll take it. Same with Michigan. Also, Arab voters, I think, will play a role in not voting for Biden, and that'll only help Trump. He's doing really well in every poll. I mean, actually, both of these states. Wisconsin always polls a bit more democratically than Michigan, even though it's actually less democratic in real life. But I think Trump's going to narrowly take the state of Michigan. And honestly, if there's one state on this map that I would theoretically give to Biden if he would somehow, pull it off, would probably be Michigan. But I just don't think it can happen at this rate. And spoiler alert, all these are going to be tilt Republican. So we'll end with the state of Pennsylvania, which this is a state, again, a bit tricky math for a Republican. You need to keep, just basically hope that turnout in Philly and Pittsburgh is not through the roof for Dems. And just really not lose all these suburban voters. You need to win some of them, get the rurals maxed out, rural counties just as red as possible, and you win. Particularly in kind of eastern Pennsylvania, some of these counties, if you can do much better in and kind of turn, maybe instead of losing them by likely margins, lose them by lean margins. And I think Trump is the guy who will do that, honestly. I think he's the best candidate there is for the job. And overall, so we can see Republicans at 312 to Democrat 226 in my latest prediction. And this is actually kind of interesting because this is, I believe, the exact margin that Trump won by in 2016. I mean, maybe not as far as electoral vote count, but certainly the states and districts. This is basically the map, 2016 map. And the only thing, though, is we can talk about different ways to the presidency. There are a ton of paths at this point for Trump to win. He could just win Georgia and Pennsylvania, and that'll push him over the finish line. He could win a combination. I mean, he really needs Pennsylvania, though, because he could win, Nevada and Arizona and lose Pennsylvania, and he wouldn't win. So he really needs to win PA. He really needs to win Michigan, if not, then Nevada and Arizona. I think he's going to win all these, though, honestly, at this point, and possibly Minnesota as well, I think, is certainly up for grabs if Biden keeps doing worse. I think Virginia, New Hampshire, and maybe New Mexico at this point. It's crazy. We're watching the Democrats panic in real time. It's absolutely awesome to see. But again, guys, remember, we can't get complacent. We have to kind of play the game like we're losing big. We have to pretend like we're losing big, even though I don't think we are, and not forget that victories only come based on, we can't just sit here and hope to win and then all of a sudden Trump wins. This is done by getting in the trenches, mobilizing people to vote, and actually getting out to the polls ourselves. So that's it for this one. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you all so much for watching, and have a great day.